It's very interesting. If I look back at all the projects that I have supervised over the years, the one thing that people panic about is writing the final report. Hi, my name is Jonathan Briggs, and I get involved with a lot of projects. What I thought I would do today is to give you my 10 top tips as to how to do a really good project. Find an area you're really interested in. That sounds really obvious, but in fact, it's not what people do. What they tend to do is they look around for a problem to solve rather than a project they'd be interested in. So what I recommend to people is that they think about their passions. They think about what they want to do in the future. They think about what's really turned them on in their courses. And they say, well, I'd like to put together a sort of mixture of technology and design thinking, or I'd like to think about new ways of working or new business models, whatever it is. But I really recommend that people start with their passion areas, the things they want to do, or perhaps the things that they're going to work on or want to work on in the rest of their careers. Find a client. At Hyper Island, we believe that the real learning happens when you take some ideas and you apply it to a problem that somebody has. We've described it as being real world ready. And I think finding a client is going to be key. It's also going to be quite the most difficult thing. Sometimes it's easy because you're working for a company and there's somebody you know and they've got a problem in the area that you're interested in, and you can say to them, hey, would you mind being my client for my project? That's a great way of working. But often you've thought about an interesting problem, you've thought about an area you want to work in, and you haven't got a client. So what I suggest is that you use your student powers. The fact that you are a student really counts for lots of things. And you go out and you contact people who might be interested in helping you with your project. Now, a client is an interesting thing because most people immediately imagine that a project student is sort of going to work for free for this client. Don't position yourself like that. Think about yourself being a consultant and use your client as a place to test out and think about your ideas. You're looking for a few hours of support from whoever it is who's going to help you by being your client. And that's going to really be in 3 stages. Firstly, getting together to decide what the problem is you're going to try and solve. And then some support as you go through your project, while you're testing out ideas, while you're thinking about how you might solve the problem. You want somebody by your side who's going to go, yeah, I like that. Oh, no, I don't like that. And then finally, you want someone to help you evaluate your project at the end, to help you gain insights on what you were trying to do. Ask yourself some really interesting questions. What we all do is we rush into solving the problems we have now identified. And we don't think that's the best thing to do. Instead of that, what you should do is you should take the problem area that you're thinking about and write down some interesting questions that you would like the answer to before you start solving the problem. One of those questions should be, what have other people done in this area already? How would Google solve this? Or how would somebody else have solved it in the past in a slightly different area? Write down those interesting questions. Think about the what ifs. Think about the why nots you can ask, and write down 4 or 5 questions that you really, really want to know the answer to before you start trying to find the answers to those questions. Start to do research. We made a list of questions in number 3, and now you're going to go and find out what other people have done and the answers to those questions. And it's really important that you look widely at different places where you might find the answers. The first thing you're likely to do is to go and type it into Google. Well, that's a useful thing because that's going to give you some sort of headlines as to how you might think about how other people are solving the problem. But the problem with Google is that it will give you the most popular answers, which are not necessarily the best. So what I recommend to our students is that they make sure that they're looking in 3 or 4 very different places. The first is they should go and review the academic literature that is out there. In every area, or in some adjacent area to the problem you're trying to solve, somebody will already have done some research into whatever it is you're trying to do. And that's okay. Remember, what we're trying to do is to build upon what they have done. So go and look at the academic literature. If you're in Singapore, that means a trip to the great National Library. If you're studying at an institution that has access to online libraries, then use that. If not, then go and use Google Scholar, which will give you some ideas and may at least introduce you to people you can contact to get a copy of a paper if you don't have access to that academic work. The second thing I recommend is that you go and look at the professional literature. That is, you try and find out, what are the consultancies saying? What are people who are paid to give advice? You're not looking for bloggers. You're not looking for sort of top tips or ultimate suggestions. You're looking for genuine insights that are going to help you drive forward with your project. The third thing I would do is learn to search really well in Google, because if, for example, you have a question and you put the word summary in there, or you add the word PDF, or you restrict it to saying, what does Gartner say about this? You'll be able to find particular things that won't come up if you just type the question into Google. So hone up your research skills, get better at finding things. Remember, what we're trying to do is to build a platform that is going to then allow you to make your contribution and to think about how you're going to solve your client problem in that way. Find out what you've learned from that research. Now, this is a stage I see people forget to do all the time. What they do is they keep reading and reading and reading, and they haven't actually captured anything. Now, at Hyper Island, we believe very strongly in the process of reflection. And reflection asks one simple question: what have I learned? So we started this research phase in number 4 by saying, do research. Now what we want to do is to sit down and say, what have I learned? And write down the key ideas that you have found out. What this will probably do is force you back into the sources you've read. Have I really understood it? Have I really got something that I can then work with? Design some experiments. We need to start thinking about what you are going to do. We're great believers in doing things, in making things. And so what you need to do is to design some experiments. Those experiments are going to take the problem you are trying to solve, and they're going to turn them into a series of conversations. They're going to turn them into a series of prototypes, or they're going to turn them into things that you can touch and feel. Those could be filling in templates or canvases or whatever. But you're going to design some experiments that are going to help you to answer the question, not simply the question you set out to answer, but the question for the client. Make something. You may feel that what you're going to do is simply learn about stuff and regurgitate that in your own words in order to help solve a problem. We don't think that's enough. We think that every project should be anchored on building something. You can build a vision of what the future is going to be like. You can build a structure which is going to help an organization take your ideas and apply them in their own particular thinking. You might be building an app prototype, or you might be building a 3D model, but make something. Make something that you can look at and go, yes, as part of my project, I constructed something that is going to help me understand the problem area that's there. Test, evaluate, and do it all again. In number 7, we said that it was really important that you were able to test something out by making something that you're going to be able to work and show people, so that you can really sense that you're making some progress. Well, the second part of that is to go and test it out with people. Go and show people what you've done, even if it's not fully polished and fully finished. Test it out and get some reactions and some feedback, and then make something again. The important thing is to start yourself on that process of actually building solutions that can then be iterated and changed. start to write and document regularly. If I look back at all the projects that I have supervised over the years, the one thing that people panic about is writing the final report. I say this to everybody, start writing it a lot earlier. I've already suggested that the literature study, the state-of-the-art review, the building of that platform you're going to work with, that's something you can write independently of the rest of your project. But getting into the habit of writing a little bit for the whole time of your project is going to make a huge difference to getting it done and finished on time. The same story applies to your writing as to your making, which is don't try and get it perfect to start with, but write something and then improve it. Get other people to read it, see if it makes sense, and then improve it. And that means, by the way, being prepared to throw things away and saying, look, I went off on a tangent and I did something that I now don't need in my project. Well, throw it away and feel good that you kept writing through your process. Reflect on the whole of your learning journey. The final tip, number 10, is to think about where the real learning happens in this whole process of doing a project for academic or business purposes. And that is where you try and find the insights in your own work. We call it reflection at Hyper Island. And it's the process of sitting down and spending some time and saying, look, where did I start? What happened? And where did I get to? And think about what changed, not just in how you solve the problem, but what changed in you. How have you become a different problem solver? How have you changed as in the way that you interact with clients, or the way you interact with software or tools or data or whatever it is you've been looking at? So reflect on the whole of the learning journey that you've been involved with. And that's a very private and important piece. And again, you may write some stuff that you end up throwing away, but that final reflection, the tip I'm going to give you is often that's where all the marks are. It's where winning the project will come in. It's where your future is based. It's very easy to do a project and for people to like your project, but not really see what you got out of it. A really good project is going to set you up for your future. If we've managed to find those insights, if you've managed to find out what's really going on and you've unlocked some value, then you'll be able to apply that to other projects and ideas that you do in the future. A really good project is one where you know yourself better after the end of the project than you did at the beginning. And a really good project is one that gives you fantastic stories to tell in the rest of your career. So those are my tips. They come because we run a master's course and we have hundreds of students a year going through that program, and that's where the experience comes from. If you're interested in finding out more about our master's program, then have a look at the URL underneath, and we hope to see you there.